The first time I held my husband's hand, he almost dropped the ice cream he was carrying. I wish I were joking. We had been married for almost 4 months. 4 months. And somehow, Noah still became nervous every time I stood a little too close to him. That evening, we had gone to the town's annual autumn festival. It was crowded. Children were laughing. Music echoed through the streets. Colorful lights danced above our heads. We were walking side by side without saying much. Neither of us had ever been very good at filling silence. But somehow, silence between us never felt uncomfortable. It felt peaceful. We stopped at a small ice cream stand. "What flavor?" Noah asked. "Surprise me." He smiled. "I'll try." A few minutes later, he returned carrying 2 cones. He handed me one with a shy smile. "Chocolate." I took one bite, then looked at him. "It's strawberry." He stared at the cone. "Oh." Then he looked completely embarrassed. And I picked the wrong one. I laughed so hard that people nearby turned to look at us. "I actually love strawberry." "You do?" "I do." He let out the deepest sigh of relief. "Good." "You looked terrified." "I was." I smiled. That was Noah. He could negotiate million-dollar business deals without breaking a sweat. But giving me the wrong ice cream flavor? Apparently that was terrifying. As we continued walking, the crowd became thicker. People bumped into us from every direction. Without thinking, I reached for his hand. The moment our fingers touched, his entire body froze. I looked at him. His ears were turning bright red. "You okay?" He nodded a little too quickly. "Yeah. You don't have to look so nervous." "I'm not nervous. You've been staring at our hands for the last 30 seconds. He looked down, then laughed at himself. "I guess I have." I squeezed his hand gently. "You can relax." Instead, he smiled. A smile so soft, so genuine, that it made my heart skip. For the rest of the evening, he never let go. Neither did I. As we stood beneath the Ferris wheel, watching the lights sparkle above us, I realized something that still amazes me. I love this man. Completely, madly, hopelessly. But if someone had told me that on our wedding day, I would have laughed through my tears. Because the day I married Noah, I wasn't in love with him. Not even close. I married him for my family, and I thought I would spend the rest of my life pretending to smile. I had no idea that one day, his smile would become my favorite place in the world. 3 months earlier, I was 22 years old when my father became seriously ill. He tried to hide it from everyone, especially me, but daughters notice things. The medicine bottles, the sleepless nights, the worried whispers between my parents. The hospital appointments that suddenly became business meetings. One evening, I walked into the kitchen and found my mother crying quietly. She quickly wiped her tears. "I'm fine." She wasn't. A week later, my parents finally told me everything. Dad's company was drowning in debt. His health was getting worse. The stress wasn't helping. For months, he'd been trying to save the business. Nothing worked. Then another family stepped forward. The Harrisons, old family friends. Their son, Noah, wanted to help. Not with money, with marriage. Our families believed joining together would protect both businesses and give my father peace of mind. I couldn't breathe. Marriage? Now? To someone I barely knew? I wanted to say no. Every part of me wanted to. But then I looked at my father. He looked smaller than I had ever seen him. Tired, worried, broken. For the first time in my life, I realized parents don't stay strong forever. Sometimes they need us. That night, I made the hardest decision of my life. "I'll do it." My mother burst into tears. Dad hugged me tighter than he ever had before. "I promise," he whispered. "You'll never regret this." At that moment, I wasn't so sure. A week later, I met Noah. Our families arranged dinner at a quiet restaurant. I expected someone confident, cold, maybe even arrogant. Instead, I found a man who almost spilled water all over the table because he was so nervous. "I'm sorry." He reached for the napkins so quickly that he knocked over his own glass too. Now there was water everywhere. For a second, neither of us spoke. Then I laughed. Not because I wanted to embarrass him. Because somehow, watching him panic made me feel less nervous myself. He looked at me carefully. "You laughed." "I did. I was worried you'd be angry." "Over water?" He smiled. A shy, almost boyish smile. I guess that would be unreasonable. The rest of dinner felt surprisingly easy. We talked about books, Travel. Favorite desserts. Childhood memories. Not once did he mention marriage. Not once did he pressure me. As we left the restaurant, he walked slightly behind me, holding the door open, making sure I stepped safely over the wet pavement. Little things. Very little things. But somehow, I noticed every single one. Our engagement happened 2 weeks later. Everything moved faster than I wanted. Dress fittings, family gatherings, guest lists, flowers, photographs. Everywhere I looked, people smiled. Everyone kept saying, "You'll make such a beautiful couple." I smiled politely. Inside, I felt empty. Sometimes Noah texted me, never too much. Just enough. Good morning. Hope your meeting goes well today. Don't forget lunch. Simple messages, yet somehow, I found myself waiting for them. One afternoon, I replied almost 2 hours late. A few minutes later, another message arrived. Everything okay? I smiled without meaning to. He noticed. Nobody else had. Not even my closest friends. The night before our wedding, my anxiety became unbearable. I couldn't sleep. Around midnight, my phone buzzed. It was Noah. Can't sleep either. I stared at the message, then typed back, "How did you know?" His reply came almost instantly. Because I'm awake too. For a while, neither of us said anything. Finally, another message appeared. "Can I tell you something?" "Sure. I'm scared too." I read those 3 words again, and again. For the first time, I realized I wasn't the only one afraid. Then another message arrived. "I don't expect you to fall in love with me tomorrow." I felt my chest tighten. "Or next week." Another pause. "But I'll spend every day giving you reasons to smile." Tears filled my eyes. Not because I loved him, because nobody had ever made me a promise that gentle before. I looked out my bedroom window. The moon was bright. The whole world seemed quiet. Then I typed 5 simple words. "Thank you for being honest." A few seconds later, his final message appeared. "Get some sleep. Tomorrow will be hard, but you won't face it alone." I held my phone against my chest. For the first time since saying yes to this marriage, I felt something unexpected. Not love, not yet. Hope is where every beautiful love story begins. The first morning after our wedding, neither of us knew how to act. I woke up before sunrise. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then I looked around. The unfamiliar bedroom, the wedding flowers sitting on the dresser, the wedding ring on my finger. It was real. I was married. A few minutes later, I quietly walked downstairs. The house was silent. I thought Noah was still asleep, until I heard a loud crash from the kitchen. I rushed inside. Noah was standing in front of the stove, looking completely defeated. There were eggs on the floor. Toast was burnt. Coffee had spilled across the counter. When he saw me, he looked embarrassed. I was trying to make breakfast. I looked around. It looks like breakfast fought back. For a second, he stared at me. Then he laughed. A real laugh. The kind that made his eyes disappear. I guess I'm not a great chef. I noticed. "I wanted your first morning here to be special." Those words made my heart soften. Nobody had ever tried that hard just to make me smile. "How about," I said, "we save the kitchen together?" His face brightened. "I'd like that." That morning, we cleaned the kitchen while laughing over our terrible cooking skills. We ended up eating cereal instead. Somehow, it became one of my favorite breakfasts. The days slowly became easier. Not because we suddenly became a perfect couple, because we stopped trying so hard. Instead of pretending to know each other, we actually got to know each other. Every evening after dinner, we'd go for a walk around the neighborhood. Sometimes we talked. Sometimes we didn't. But somehow, those quiet walks became my favorite part of the day. One evening, the sidewalks were covered in orange leaves. The air felt cool, peaceful. I bent down to pick up a bright red maple leaf. "It's beautiful." Noah smiled. "It matches your sweater." I looked at him. Was that a compliment? His face turned bright pink. He rubbed the back of his neck. "I guess it was." I laughed. "You blush every time you say something nice." "I can't help it." "You know," I teased, "it's kind of cute." He stopped walking. "What?" I said, "It's cute." He looked away immediately. "You shouldn't say things like that." "Why?" "Because then I forget how to think." I laughed so hard I nearly dropped the leaf. A few days later, we visited a bookstore. I wandered through the romance section while Noah disappeared somewhere else. After a while, I found him standing near the cafe. He was holding a small paper bag. For you. What is it? He shrugged nervously. I remembered you saying you liked cinnamon rolls. I opened the bag. The sweet smell filled the air. They're still warm. You remembered? You mentioned it once. Just once, weeks earlier. Yet somehow, he remembered. Without thinking, I tore off a small piece. Here. He blinked. What? Try it. You first. I already did. He hesitated, then leaned closer. Very carefully, he took the small piece from my fingers. For a second, our eyes met. His ears turned red again. So? I asked. He smiled. It's really good. It tastes better because you shared it. Our shoulders kept brushing together. Every few steps, our hands accidentally touched. Neither of us moved away. At one point, I slipped on the wet sidewalk. Before I could fall, Noah wrapped his arm around my waist. Everything stopped. The rain, the traffic, even my breathing. He looked just as surprised as I felt. You okay? I nodded slowly. Yeah. He didn't let go immediately. Neither of us wanted him to. Finally, I smiled. You can let go now. His face turned bright red. Oh, unless, I teased, you like standing this close. He looked completely flustered. I laughed. I'm kidding. He smiled nervously. I know, but judging by his face, he definitely didn't. That night, lying in bed, I couldn't stop thinking about him. About the umbrella, about the way he caught me, about the warmth of his hand around mine, about the way he always looked at me, as though I was someone precious. And for the first time, I admitted something to myself. I wasn't just getting used to this marriage anymore. I was falling in love with the man I married for my family. Slowly, quietly, completely. I just didn't know whether he felt the same, or whether all of his kindness was simply who he was. Little did I know. The answer was waiting inside a dusty wooden box hidden in the attic.